right, guys, we're back for another episode of the Elite Development Podcast. And before we get into the show, I want to just break down what this show is all about if you have not tuned in before and this is your first time. The goal of this show is to help athletes actually build the dream career in sports that they're after. Because if you know anything about that world, if you know anything about, elite performance sport, less than 1% of all athletes that actually start training and have a desire to compete anywhere high level in sport actually will end up doing it. And that is a very low number. And my goal is for you to not be part of that 99% that fail. And my goal is for you to be part of that 1% that actually get to build the dream career that they're after. And the reason I believe that so many don't end up pursuing it to the level that they want or don't end up succeeding at the level that they want is because they don't understand the bits and pieces outside of competition itself that allow athletes to be successful. And that is the aim of this show, is to help you better understand those pieces, better develop your life as a whole, and in turn, finally see the success that you're looking for in your sport. Now, in the episode today, we're going to be talking about your why, and we're going to be talking about how your why needs to be more powerful than your why not. And let's get into the show in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're going to be talking about how your why needs to be stronger than your why not. Now, this episode comes from the inspiration from one of my business mentors, Dusseault. And in January, I got to go to an event where I got to hear Cole speak live. I'm actually headed to another one very soon here. Actually, when this episode comes out, I might be at that event. But this one was really powerful to me when Cole spoke back in January, because he was talking all about your why and why it is you do what you do, and how important it is to truly understand why you do what you do in depth. And now, if you know me, if you followed the show for a while, you know that I've been coaching for over half my life now. In some capacity or another, I was coaching in powerlifting. I started strength and conditioning more so when I was in university, working with the university teams out at Bishop's. After that, I bounced around a couple of jobs, and then I started my own business in 2019 and had been continuously building that for about the last 4 years. And through all of that time, I was very inconsistent. I'd grind super hard for a while, and then I'd kind of take my foot off the gas and just sort of get through my days and do whatever I had to do, but not really push that hard. And then I'd start grinding really hard again, and then I'd back off again. And I was just always very back and forth. Now, don't get me wrong, through that whole time, even when I was taking it easy, I was still working harder than most. But for somebody who said that I wanted the things that I wanted, I wanted to own a gym, I wanted to work with professional athletes, I wanted all of these things in my life. For somebody who said they wanted all of those things, I wasn't doing the work I needed to do. And, I always had a reason. Buddy's got a birthday on the weekend, so I'm just going to go out and have some drinks. Or for a while there, it was, it's Friday, so I'm just going to go out and have some drinks. And I was almost living this double life. During the week, I was a very high performer that wanted to, succeed and wanted to do all these great things and wanted to change athletes' careers and be known in our industry and all this. And then on the weekends, I was a drunk, for lack of a better term. But it was listening to this speech in January that for the first time in 15 years, I truly understood my why. And I truly feel like I've made a shift to be able to accomplish it. Because like I said, in the times before, I was always working hard. There was never a time where I would have considered myself truly lazy. But compared to who I want to become, there were definitely times where I would have considered myself truly lazy. And in comparison to the people that I was around, maybe not, but in comparison to who I knew I could be, I was not measuring up. And when Cole delivered that speech in January, it really helped me truly develop my why. So my why behind coaching, and more specifically, my why behind coaching combat athletes, is that, first of all, when I was an athlete, when I was growing up, I was a powerlifter, and I did very, very well for a short period of time. I won a national championship. I broke a number of national records. But I was always focused on working harder than everyone. I was always focused on lifting more weight than everyone, doing more training sessions than everyone, being in the gym for longer, all of those things. And that served me very, very well for a very short period of time. I shot up, I won a national championship, broke the records, like I said. And then after that short period of time, I started succumbing to injuries. I've injured both my shoulders, I've injured both my knees, I've injured both my hips. To this day, my back isn't right. And I've been working through a lot of it and it's gotten a lot better. But to this day, I still have weird random aches and pains that come from old powerlifting injuries. And the reason was because I didn't understand the point of my training. In my head, the harder I worked, the more I would succeed when I hit the platform. Whereas in reality, the better that I took care of my body and the more I made sure I had no glaring weaknesses in my strength and in my structure, the better I would perform on the platform. So instead of focusing on just lifting more than the other guys in my competition or in my weight class, I needed or should have focused on doing the things that were going to allow me to be successful. So that was one of the reasons that I coach, is because I have made those mistakes time and time again as an athlete. And I've felt that heartbreak of being injured 2 weeks before a competition and not being able to showcase your hard work. I felt that heartbreak of finishing a competition and not being able to perform the way you wanted because your body wasn't holding up. I've felt that heartbreak of the aches and the pains and the constant injury while training that don't allow you to continue to pursue the sport that you love at the level you want to pursue it at. I've felt that heartbreak of having to admit to myself, I can't compete anymore because my body won't hold up to it because I didn't take care of it, and knowing I was the only person that I had to blame for actually making that happen. So that's one of the main reasons I coach, is because I don't want athletes to have to feel those things that I felt. One of the other main reasons, and this is more the main reason behind combat athletes, is that I always resonated with being an individual athlete. I played hockey growing up, I played soccer, I played basketball, I played volleyball, I played a bunch of sports. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed them. But what I loved about powerlifting in particular, and what I believe allowed me to see the limited amount of success that I did, was that my success relied fully on my work ethic. If I didn't do the training sessions, I didn't win. If I did the training sessions, I won. And that's what resonated with me so much about that, because obviously in hockey, you can train as hard as you want. If you're on a shitty team, you're still going to lose a lot of games. And that's what I loved about competing. I was truly putting my work to the test against everybody that was in my weight class. And that's what I love about combat sports too. It's that individual nature of every athlete. No athlete is being told, this is exactly what you have to do each week. They've got to create that for themselves. You know, there are some athletes that don't do strength and conditioning at all, which if you're one of those, I think you're crazy. But there are some athletes, every athlete has to come up with that themselves. They have to pick their gym. They have to pick their coaches. They have to determine how hard they're willing to work. And in turn, their work goes up against their opponent's work, and the one who prepared the best is going to be the one who comes out on top. And as a coach, I love being able to have the impact on that individual. And as a coach, I love being able to have the impact on the outcome that that individual is able to actually see when they are willing to put in the work. And so those are two of the main reasons that I coach. And the actual final reason is, when I was growing up, I was always taught sports are for fun. And don't get me wrong, if that's your attitude, that's fine. But I didn't realize till later that never really resonated with me. I was always a very competitive person, and it wasn't until I was moved out on my own that I really came to realize that. It wasn't until I was moved out on my own that I came to realize that I liked to win. And when I was growing up, winning meant going and playing at the lower level so that I was better than everyone and I could score more goals. But then in real life, obviously, if you're an adult, you understand this. Things don't just get handed to you. You can't just decide to play the lower level and get the better result. If you want the better result, you need to go fucking take it. And I think so many athletes out there don't understand this to the proper degree. And so part of what I aim to deliver as a coach is the understanding outside of just the skills themselves that if you want the result, if you want to be a UFC champion, if you want to make millions of dollars competing in your sport, you need to deserve it. And if you understand that and you are truly willing to embody that, I believe that alone is one of the determining factors in you being successful in your career or not. And it is my aim to help instill that in every single athlete that I work with so that they can look back on their careers with satisfaction, unlike I was able to look back on my powerlifting career, because every time I look back at that, there's disappointment. I wasn't able to do what I wanted to in the sport because I didn't take the proper approach. And if I had had someone like me now, there instilling that proper approach and that proper mindset and being able to shut the noise out and all of that, that would have allowed me to pursue the sport to a higher level. And in turn, that would allow me to look back on that part of my life with satisfaction and not with disappointment. And that is what I aim to instill in my athletes. Now, why is this so important? Why is it so important to understand that versus what I used to understand about myself, which is I love coaching and working with athletes is fun. The reason that's so important is because if I want to have that impact on a larger scale, I now understand the type of person that I need to be in order to have that kind of impact. And that has allowed me to completely shift the way I approach each day, the way I approach my business, the way I approach my life. That understanding and that mentality has allowed me to cut out drinking because I understand that drinking is not something that benefits me in any way, shape, or form. And I have bigger, better, more important things to focus my time on. That mentality shift has allowed me to consistently wake up at 4:30 every single morning since that event to get work in on my mindset to improve my ability to attack each day and actually deliver this message to the best of my ability to impact more athletes. That mentality shift has allowed me to bring people into my company, which was something that terrified me before, and actually lead them to help deliver this same message so that I can impact them, and in turn, they can impact more athletes. And in turn, we can have that impact together that I want to have on this industry and on this world. That mentality shift alone has allowed me to level myself up as a coach, as a business owner, and as a human being in order to truly demonstrate the characteristics that need to be demonstrated to show athletes what it takes to reach higher levels. And to show them what it takes to reach higher levels from someone who didn't reach those higher levels. I didn't reach them, but I understand now the reason I didn't reach them wasn't because of politics of the sport, wasn't because of, oh, my bad luck with injuries, wasn't because of this or that. It was because I did the wrong shit. And if you can understand that your success in your career is completely up to you waking up every day, making the right decisions, doing the right shit, and doing that over and over and over again, you are going to be able to change your career. And that is my goal in this industry. And this is what so many of you guys are missing. This is what so many athletes out there are missing. I speak to athletes every day that tell me they want to be UFC champions. They tell me they want to win world championships. They want to make millions of dollars. They want all of these incredible things from their careers. But these same athletes will take months off training because, oh, I don't have a fight booked right now. Do you think that current UFC champions would take 2 months off of training completely just because they don't have a fight booked? Do you think that current UFC champions, as they were coming up, would just say, oh, I don't have a fight for a couple months, so I'll just, go on some, I'll just go on some benders and, it's like fuck training for a little while. I don't have to think about it until I get my fight booked. And when I get my fight booked, then I'll start taking it seriously. Fuck no. They put the work in every single day. They made the right decisions every single day. They made the sacrifices necessary to allow them to reach the goals in their careers and allow them to reach the positions that they're in right now. But you're not doing that because you don't understand what actually goes into achieving that goal. And this is what you guys need to understand. Your why behind being a UFC champion, your why behind making millions of dollars competing in a sport needs to be stronger than your why not. Because I understand the impulse. If you don't have a fight booked, I understand why you'd think, oh, I should just take some time off. But that's because your why isn't strong enough. Before I really found that why, when I would tell myself, hey, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock every morning so that I can get to work and I can get a really long, productive day in, then I'd wake up at 5 and I'd be tired and I'd go, I'll sleep in a couple more hours. But now, every time that thought goes through my head, my 4:30 alarm goes off, and every morning I have that moment of, I'll just sleep in for a little bit, and then I think to myself, what impact are you trying to have in the world? You're trying to be well known in this industry. You're trying to change the future of athletes that you work with. And what kind of person does that? The person who wakes up first thing in the morning, the person who puts the work into their mindset, the person who puts the work into themselves to be able to then put that work into every athlete he comes across. And that thought alone gets me out of bed. That thought alone keeps me consistent. That thought alone has allowed me to triple the size of my business within the last year. That thought alone has allowed me to completely level myself up and completely change myself as a coach, as a business owner, and as a person, simply by having clarity on what I'm trying to accomplish in the world. And this is what you guys need to understand. Taking those 2 months off of training because you don't have a fight booked right now is handing your opponent an advantage. So if your why isn't strong enough, your reason behind wanting a career as a fighter isn't strong enough, then taking that time off doesn't feel like a big deal. But if you are super clear, I want to be a UFC champion because I want to show my future family that anything you want to accomplish in this life, if you put your mind to it and you put the work in, you can accomplish it. And if you have that burning in your heart, burning in your soul, if you have that burning in your soul and that early morning alarm goes off and you're supposed to go train that morning and you don't want to train and every fiber of your being is saying no, and you have that burning in your soul, that's going to be what makes you say yes. That's going to be what makes you put the work in today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, that in turn allows you to achieve that goal of becoming a UFC champion. But if you don't have that, then it's easy to take the time off. It's easy to take the time away. It's easy to tell coaches that you know can help you, oh, I can't invest right now because money's tight. Yeah, I understand money's tight. But if your why behind wanting to achieve that goal is strong enough, your desire behind wanting to be that person is strong enough, you find a reason and you find a way to make the investments that you need to make the sacrifices that you need to make, to put yourself in your career first so that your future kids can look up to you and say, wow, he did it or she did it. And then when you're turning to them and you're saying you can be whatever you want to be in life, they look to you as the example of being whatever you want to be. They don't look to you and say, well, if I can be whatever I want to be, why didn't you? And if you can keep that mentality strong, that is what's going to allow you to put the action in every day that is going to allow you to achieve the goals you have in your career. So that is it. That is all. My ask, as always, is, guys, if you got value from the show today, make sure you share it to your social medias. Make sure you share it to a coach, to a friend, to a teammate, to someone who's going to benefit from hearing this message. Like I said, my goal is to help impact and help change the lives of as many athletes as I possibly can through this podcast. And the way we do that is through word of mouth. So again, thank you for the time. I appreciate you. We'll talk again soon.